Welcome to another recording of ARVR Live, a brand new video series about using moving images and sound in a new and more immersive way. I am your host, Pascal Fintoni, and to help me explore how we can engage our online audience better and faster, I am joined today by live video marketing consultant and speaker, Ian Anderson-Gray. So Ian, welcome to ARVR Live.
Thanks, Pascal. I'm really excited to be here, and any excuse to hang out with you is worth taking.
Well, thank you very much. So I started this season at this moment in time with two key questions, which are, where are you and how are you doing, Ian?
Well, if we're talking geographically speaking, where am I, which I assume is what you mean, I'm
Yes.
just south of Manchester, a village, or yeah, I think it's a village called Cheadle, which is near Stockport. So that's where I am. I've lived in this kind of part of the world most of my life, although I did have a spell in Glasgow, which is where my parents are from. And how am I doing? Yeah, I mean, this year it's been a difficult year, for all the obvious reasons. You know, I miss giving my parents a hug a lot, so there's all that kind of stuff. But actually, from a business point of view, things have actually gone really well. I kind of almost feel guilty saying that because I know there's so many people that are struggling at the moment. But I mean, everyone seems to be wanting live video help, and so from a business point of view, that's been really exciting. And it's also been an exciting time because I've been able to invest back into my business. So all of the things that I've been wanting to do, uh, such as hiring people to help with the aspects of my business that I don't really like to do. that's been quite good. So yeah, there's been positives. There's also been some negatives, as I expect is probably the case with most people.
Thank you very much, and we'll explore that actually. The take up in live streaming. Just very quickly, I was reading a report from the Content Marketing Institute, and literally the number of people who are using live streaming to build their brand has doubled compared to 12 months ago.
Yeah.
So percentage. But for our viewers and listeners, a bit of an introduction to Ian Anderson-Gray. So Ian and I've known each other for some years, but there are facets of his business and what he does as a consultant that I'm not aware of. So I'll be exploring that. But you're here to help entrepreneurs and businesses around the world level up their impact with live video. You are the host of the Confident Live Marketing podcast. You have self-study courses, Confident Live Marketing Academy, coaching services, and a blog that all of you must go and check out. So rich in information, so diverse. But what you've done so well is that you brought elements of your career path, I would say, but also your kind of passion in other aspects of life, particularly performance on stage, to create something that is very unique to you. And I just want to begin by, the question of, where can you remember the moment, the spark when you thought, this live video marketing stuff, maybe I have something to say, or maybe I have some views about it that can help others?
Yeah, remember very clearly. It was back in 2016. So this is when Facebook Live was launched for the first time. It was in its nappies or diapers, depending where in the world you are. And it seemed like everyone had access to it, or certainly everyone in the marketing space, apart from me. Yeah, because living in the UK, we always get things, after our friends in the US. And also I was an Android phone user. So I was looking for a way to use Facebook Live. And I discovered this tool called OBS Studio, very geeky. I am a bit geeky. I'm going to be honest about that. I'm going to embrace the inner geek in me. But the problem was that going live on Facebook from your computer was really hard. And so I'm a bit of a details guy. And so I did a lot of research and I discovered a way that you could go live from your computer using this software. But maybe because of my teaching background, and I have this passion for helping people who aren't techie understand how to do something. And I felt there were all these people out there in the world who could use Facebook Live, but were struggling with it. And so I wrote this in-depth article. I made it as easy as possible. I tried to make it as easy as possible. But I wasn't really using Facebook Live that much. I was using it to test it. I wasn't really using it much, but I felt that everyone else needed to use it. And so I wrote this article. And after a month or two, I realized I'd kind of stumbled upon something really quite magical, because that that article got shared and shared and shared. It went really viral. I mean, it's had about, I forget, I need to look at it, but since then it's had about 6 or 7 million page views. It's completely nuts. And even to this day, I can't quite fathom that. So I wrote that article, and that was great. But there was one part missing. I felt a real imposter here because I was talking about it, but I wasn't really doing it. I was a bit scared about doing it. Well, I'm going to be honest. I was really scared of going live, and everyone else was doing it. But people were asking me, and I was getting asked to speak on the subject. So a bit more fuel to the imposter syndrome there. So I knew I needed to do something. And so it was actually at Social Media Marketing World, which is a big conference. It's the biggest social media conference really in the world, in San Diego. And I have had the privilege to speak at that every year since 2016. And so I was there, and I was on stage um, with quite a few other people in the social media space who were all very musical. Now, my background is music. I trained as a professional singer, and I was on stage with all these other people, like I don't know, Steve Dotto was one, Molly Mahoney. These are people in the marketing space who are very, very successful. And we were doing a musical on stage, like you do. We were singing, I think it was The Wizard of Oz. It was a parody on networking.
Fine choice.
Yeah, yeah, it was a great choice. And I suddenly had this realization, oh, my background is singing. I'm able to bring my love of social media and technology and everything and music on stage in front of people. And something clicked in my head. Um, I'm in the right place here. And at that time, live video was suddenly becoming a big thing. And I realized I need to do something about this. I need to get over my fear of live video. I've got my background in singing and performing. Come on, Ian, get a grip. Let's do something about it. And from then on, yeah, I started to embrace live video, not just the technical and the the theoretical side of it, but also the actual practical way of doing it and helping people get over their fear of it. Because I certainly had that fear, um, and that was really the start of my journey.
No, it's been incredible. And I remember vividly that OBS article because actually I read it and so on. But I remember seeing the excuse me, the reaction from the interweb, as I could call it, fondly,
Yeah.
because it was almost like, with each passing day, people were getting wow. But it was more to do with the fact that there was people were grateful that someone had taken the trouble to kind of go for this kind of translation, if you will,
Yeah.
exercise. And I think that they're responding well, and you're right. And I think you kind of were true to your background as a teacher, true to the other same, because the the website that people need to check, iag.me, has been in existence obviously for some time. You were still busy, trying to demystify the world of IT, and remember you gave a wonderful presentation at Social Media Europe, around apps and kind of things you could have in your toolkit, and there was so many in there that I didn't know, and I consider myself to be reasonably interested in that kind of things. But did it feel a risky endeavor to then go into live video marketing almost solely?
Oh yeah, yeah, and so much so that it took me years and years to make the transition. You know, everyone talks about pivoting when I didn't even know what pivoting was. I mean, it sounds like a kind of painful thing. Well, in fact, it was, because it seemed that everyone else saw me as this live video guy. So just to backtrack, I I trained as a professional singer, and then in about 2004, I set up a web agency with my dad, who had recently retired, called Select Performers. I'm still doing that today, but it was in 2011, after quite a bit of procrastination, that I set up my blog at iag.me, and I started blogging about social media tools. And actually, one of the articles that I wrote got a lot of popularity early on. It was 7 reasons not to use Hootsuite. Not that I had anything, I wasn't like against Hootsuite. I just wanted to look at the other side of it. And so, but this was, fast forward to 2016, I was then talking about live video. So social media tools was my thing, and I was now talking about live video, but I was resisting that. There was massive resistance. Everyone else saw me as live video guy, but it wasn't really until 2018, 2019, even, that it was 2 years, at least 2 years before I got comfortable with the idea of niching in that world, and being seen as that, and actually pumping out that content. Loads of things we could talk about there that I know lots of other people struggle with: perfectionism, procrastination, imposter syndrome, all those things. But thankfully, I got myself together, and really in 2019 and 2020 has been my years of actually really focusing solely on live video, and that being my thing.
I certainly sensed, and perhaps I was, you'll correct me if I'm reading too much into it, but when you gave that presentation at the Atomicon conference in Newcastle upon Tyne, and you gave the kind of live video marketing presentation of all presentations, I went, oh, that's interesting. Ian seems to have taken the bull by the horns now, and is doing something very special, because that was the first time I heard you bring your different backgrounds, including that of a singer. And well, I hope you realized it was very well received, and I think that did it help to get that confirmation from the audience as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with the whole concept of the five love languages, but the five love languages is how we receive and give love to other people. So it's primarily for like, I don't know, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, spouse, or that kind of thing. But the way I need to receive love are physical touch, which is a bit of a problem in 2020. I like a good hug, but but the other one is words of affirmation. I need to have that affirmation, and so I think I needed a lot of that in order for me to confirm that this is the way to go. And so yeah, 2019 was an amazing year for me because there was a Tomicon. I was speaking in Slovenia, in America, and Poland, and it was all on live video. And yeah, the talks were all really well received. I was mixing my background in singing and getting people to do warming up exercises and things like that with the technology. And so that was a real year of, yeah, I think it was a year of affirmation and visibility for me. After a pretty difficult year the year before, 2017 was a hard year because I had so many doubts and issues, psychological mindset issues that I know a lot of people suffer from, but that was not a good year. So 2019 was a much, much better, and it laid the foundations to what I'm doing this year, I think.
No, that's great. So, what you've been able to do, obviously through reflection and observation and so on, you've been able to actually structure your thinking, your coaching, and the way in which you help others. And you speak about what you've kind of coined the three camera barriers. Can you remind us what they are in your view?
Yeah, so the first one is probably, well, I know it is the biggest one. So this is the live video confidence and fear. This is getting in front of the camera. It's that mindset side of things. The second one is live video uh, tech and gear. So this is, what gear do I need? What tech? All that kind of stuff. And then the final one is the content marketing sphere. So this is all to do with how you promote your lives. What on earth do you talk about on your live videos? But just to say that often, so I'm not saying that the second and the third, so the gear and the tech and the content marketing are unimportant. They absolutely are important. But quite often we get obsessed, particularly by the tech, and the reason for that is because actually we're too scared to get in front of the camera. So we want to get everything else sorted first. I need to sort out my plan, or I need to sort out my tech. And actually, you're just scared of pressing that go live button. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that's really important to say.
Well, I'm going to take a hint from that then, and I hope you don't mind, but for the remainder of this conversation, I'd like to primarily focus, therefore, on the first barrier, which I know you've named on your website as the live video camera confidence, mindset, and fear. Because I think
Mhm.
you're right. Someone's like someone saying to you, "If I had a better pen, I could write a better book." And kind of, well,
Yes.
really. So, can you take us through how you would help somebody? Probably connect with that confidence mindset and fear, and then what are some of the techniques perhaps you could share that would help us not necessarily completely remove it from our thinking, because I think they have a role to play in making you perform better, but what can we do to build and become more confident in front of a live camera?
Well, there's lots of ways of tackling this, and it kind of depends on you. We're all individuals. We all have different struggles, I suppose. One thing that really has helped me is actually looking at that third thing, the content marketing sphere thing, and actually working out what it is that you're wanting to do. If you have a clear goal, that's going to make it much easier for you to get in front of the camera, because we question that in our minds. Oh, yes, I need to go live next week, but yeah, I'm going to do other things, But if you know why you're doing it, if you know who your audience is, if you know the who, the what, and the where, and all these words, if you know all of that, that's going to make it a lot easier. So I always recommend having a plan. Uh, Create a Google Doc, or if you're old school, just get a pen and paper and write down what your plan is for your live video broadcasts. And so that's what I did with my show last year. I created this document. I wrote what my mission statement was, what my goal is, who my audience is, why I'm doing it. And then the great thing about that is, I know a lot of people are into meditation, and it almost becomes like this meditation thing. So if you're struggling with things, if you're struggling with the idea of going live next week, if you're scared, read the document. Just read it and think, that's why I'm going live. That's why this is worth it. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is, if you are feeling all these things, is knowing that you're not alone. This is why I'm so honest and open about my struggles, because I know that people don't talk about this enough. There are some people out there that are uber confident, and they have no problems. They'll get in front of the camera, it's all fine. But a lot of people, they struggle with that. And so if you feel like that you're not alone. So then we get on to some practical tips on actually how to do it. And this is a really simple tip, and that is, well, just do it. But I'm gonna like go into that a little bit more on how you can actually get to that point of just doing it, because we can overthink things. And I know this because I'm an overthinker. So the first thing that I think would be good to do is to get used to getting in front of the camera a little bit more. Because I remember getting in front of the camera the first time was scary. So the first thing that I did is I dabbled with Instagram stories. Instagram stories or Facebook stories are great because this is getting in front of the camera on a regular basis, every day if you can, and you're just sharing like 2 or 3 15-second little video clips of you in front of the camera. So that's the first thing that I would do, is do that on a regular basis, because you're building in consistency, you're getting in front of the camera. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Because they only last for 24 hours. So that's great. The second thing I would do is do a test live video. So Facebook Live is great for this. Pick up your phone, go to your personal profile, change press the live button. So you're going to create a live post, but then change the privacy settings to only me. And then the only person that's going to watch you is you in the future. So that's a great way of doing it. And also do it with other people. So do a live video with other people. And so that's a great thing. You could use a live video tool for that and go live in a group and do it that way. So I think those are great ways, but I think it's really a case of doing it and trying it, because I hate to say this, but the first few, no, let me be honest here. The first dozen, okay, let me be even more honest. The first 20 or 30 videos that you do are not going to be that great. You are going to stumble over your words. You'll press the go live button. Your brain will go to mush. The tech will stop working sometimes. The internet will go down. Things like that will happen. And so you just need to be okay with that. You need to learn from those experiences. They've happened to me, they'll happen to you, but every single time you go live, it will improve, because you'll remember things. You'll think, okay, I now need to remember to write down the first couple of sentences, because I know that my brain goes to mush every time I go live. And so that's my final, there's lots of other things we could talk about, but my final thing from this point of view is create a list, a checklist of all the tech things, but also make a list of all the things that you're going to say, not word for word, but definitely have a list so that you know what you're going to say. Loads of other things we could talk about, but those are the main points.
Oh, thanks very much. Well, let me pick, as you can tell, I was making notes, not just for the show notes, but also because I wanted to get back to you. So, I mean, I'm a great believer in the checklist. And in fact, if you look, Ian, and to our viewers and listeners, if you look at, TV presenters and producers and so on, they have usually a document with a few bullet points. They don't rely on memory. And the amount of time I've not followed my own advice and something has gone wrong because I didn't go through the checklist, I think it's very, very important. When you did the Instagram stories, what did you record? What did you talk about?
So will depend on your business, but for me, I actually made it really quite personal about what was going on in my life, what I was working on. So I really like there's an acronym that a friend of mine uses called BLAST. So my friend's called Sam Ashdown. She's a marketer for estate agents in the UK. And the BLAST stands for behind the scenes content, local content, a day in the life content, sneak peek, and tips and advice. And so for Instagram, it was mainly a day in the life content. This is like what I'm getting up to in the day. But sometimes it might be a sneak peek. Here's something that I'm working on, but it was really behind the scenes. It was authentic. I know that word is used a lot, but it was really the real me. And so I was sharing a lot of that content on my Instagram stories.
When you began, so you've been talking about, Facebook Live, primarily. Is that because it's been the one that's giving you the best return on effort, or simply one that you've connected with the most?
It was so to be honest, it was really because that was the first big network that had a live broadcasting facility. Yes, there was Periscope. Periscope was a big thing. Again, at the time, unfortunately, I was an Android user, so I didn't have access. And actually, because of this whole thing, I ended up going over to the dark side and getting a first of all got an iPhone, and then because I launched a course on OBS Studio on the back of my article, like two-thirds of the people were Mac users, and they're asking me loads of Mac
Wow.
questions. So I bought my first Mac, and so yeah, it was that downhill from that one. Joking, but yeah, I think that's obviously really helped. And I've completely forgotten your question. I've got sidetracked. What was the question you were asking me?
No, it was just, around the why Facebook Live primarily, and was it a business case that, you were getting more results from your efforts, or was it simply that, you were interested and it was the first one that caught your imagination?
So yeah, Facebook Live was primarily because it was the most popular network at the time and got the most engagement. It was what my audience were asking the most about. Since then, YouTube Live has become a bigger thing. LinkedIn
Right.
Live has become a possibility, and so I'm not focusing purely on Facebook Live, but that still tends to be where people are asking me the most questions, probably because of that earlier article.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But so obviously, LinkedIn Live is a bit of a sore subject as part of this video Q&A, because I am on my sixth request to join LinkedIn
Oh.
Live. Roger Edwards, my co-host on 2X and Marketing podcast, and very good friend, got it, I think, a few weeks ago. But I think no, we should to use this platform to attack LinkedIn, but it feels it's been a little random because I've got some clients, with respect, who are very, very new to the whole content marketing business, who got it and I didn't. So it was very, very strange. But do you find that by and large, all platforms operate the same?
No, there are little differences. So I can go through some of those now. I mean, Facebook Live is a pretty robust platform. It's still actually remarkably buggy though in places. So and the way the comments work is that the comments will you can comment while you're live, but they become real live comments to a preview to so basically once you press the end broadcast button, that live video becomes a regular pre-recorded video, like a pre-recorded video, and those comments on the live end up as live comments. Sorry, as comments on the actual video. Whereas on YouTube, and it is a little bit complicated. That's why I'm stumbling over my words. But with YouTube, you have a live chat facility, and when you end the broadcast, you can have those live comments still being on a chat window, but they don't turn into regular comments on your YouTube live. And then LinkedIn is again, it's different again. It's it very works very similarly to Facebook, but I think actually the quality of the video tends to be a little bit better on your LinkedIn lives. Instagram is the only way, uh, legitimately at least, to broadcast is through the mobile app. So you can't broadcast from your computer. There are ways around it, which I wouldn't recommend doing, but that's Instagram, and then there are loads of other platforms as well. And then there's the whole thing of scheduling, or scheduling, as I say,
Mm.
scheduling your videos. So you can schedule a Facebook Live, you can schedule a YouTube. There's a bit of a weird issue on Facebook at the moment in that you get a duplicate post. You get this announcement post that you're going to go live, and then you got the actual live. And a lot of us in the Facebook Live space are just thinking, Facebook, what on earth are you doing? But Facebook apparently think this is the best thing since sliced bread. And LinkedIn, you mentioned LinkedIn Live, yeah, and I empathize with you. I mean, I do have it, but I almost feel guilty having it because I'm quite an empathetic person, and I can feel the pain of all these people, my friends who don't have it yet, and it's they're rolling it out so slowly. But so it's in a beta, a closed beta at the moment, but there's a beta within a beta. And there is currently a closed beta for being able to schedule your LinkedIn Live. So that is coming. That's rolling out soon. And then there's Twitch, there's Periscope, there's, oh my goodness, there's loads of platforms out there as well as those main ones.
Yes, and I know that our viewers and listeners will know, the kind of the old, well, old, or certainly the recommendation adage of, go where your audience is. I know there's all these
Yes.
options, but you don't have to necessarily go on all of them. Can I
Yeah.
go back to confidence and building confidence? So when you work with your clients, is the aim to remove all fears and suddenly become a totally different human being? Well, actually, is it more about managing those feelings and that kind of in a monologue sometimes that gets in the way?
Oh yeah. I don't think you can ever completely get away from the fear. It's turning that fear into a different emotion. So it's kind of rewiring the brain here. It's turning that fear into excitement. So I mean, I'm not the only one to say this, but certainly when I was a professional singer, I remember going on stage. It was the Liverpool Philharmonic Hall. I was singing the baritone solo in Camina Burana, which I mean, I think a lot of people will know the
Hmm.
opening number of that. But there's a baritone solo, which is ridiculous. It has 16 top G's in it, and I had just done a rehearsal early on the day in front of a whole orchestra and choir, in which my voice cracked on the top notes. So I was going out in front of the audience, and I was thinking, what on earth am I doing? I could be at home. Netflix wasn't around, but I could be at home watching DVDs, and I'm out here, and so I was scared. But then suddenly something clicked when I was in front of the audience, and that fear turned into excitement. And that excitement, that adrenaline pumping through my veins, actually helped me, gave the best performance of my life. My voice didn't crack because I had this energy, this excitement. And I think it's the same in front of the camera. The problem with the camera, and I'm sure you would agree with this, Pascal, is that the camera is a bit of an energy sucking device. It's an inanimate object. You don't really get any feedback from it. You get feedback from an audience, but you don't get feedback from the camera. And so what I had to learn is actually to turn this fear that I had into excitement in front of the camera. I had to almost like hype myself up and give myself this energy, or turn this fear into excitement. And that takes practice. One thing that I think a lot of people struggle with is not looking at or through the camera. People look at the screen, and actually you need to imagine that your audience, your perfect client, or whoever it is directly behind your camera. And even print out a picture or something and put it behind the camera, because it really, really helps. So turn that fear into excitement. It will not go away, but you can manage it. It's a case of managing that and turning that negative emotion into a really positive emotion that's actually going to be your friend.
No, thanks for that. And a couple of things you said, which it's not easy. And for our viewers and listeners, don't give yourself a hard time. But of course, when you go live and you have a screen that plays back to you the image, and you're the one, who's animated, who's moving, of course, your eye is going to be drawn towards what is moving and what has sound. And to kind of train the mind to only look at a little bit of the lens, or the little red or green dot, depending on the weather, which way your phone works, is hard, and it takes practice. So again, give yourself time. Can I ask, this question of, so you went back on stage with a memory of essentially, the incident of your voice essentially giving on you. that's what really we do. We remember all the things that have gone wrong, and we don't celebrate what has gone right as producers of our own content marketing effort.
Yeah.
So I'm the first one to remember last time I messed up the intro, last time I stumbled on my words, last time I didn't record properly. And I've got all this baggage, and have you got ways in which we can let go of this memory of the stuff? Because actually, proportionate to the number of hours of recording that perhaps you've done and I've done, usually, 99.9% of the time things go pretty well, but there's that 0.1% that we seem to be completely fixated on.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, just I'll say one thing. Actually, when things go wrong, if for example the cat jumps on your table and your webcam falls over, or the kids come in, those bits we might be horrified by those bits, but on live video, it's actually those bits that gets the most engagement. People love it when that kind of thing happens. So don't get rid of that. Actually you could take those moments and turn it into a piece of like the outtakes or whatever, blooper content, because those are fun. You've got to get over yourself, and I feel a complete hypocrite saying this. This is something I really struggle with, but you've got to remember that it's not about you. Actually, live video is about your audience, so you need to kind of like work on your ego, or make sure that you remember who it is that you're talking to. So my technique for this is a couple of ways. I mean, there's a more general way, which I struggle with. I've always struggled with beating myself up in lots of areas of my life, but in my business, thinking, oh well, it's a very British thing to say, but oh, I'm rubbish. People out there that are so much better than me, and da 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 da. And so what I ended up doing is having a couple of files. I use Google Docs for this, but you don't need to. One of them is I call it my nice words file. Basically, I've put in there when people have said good things about me, I put it in there. And because I always remember the negative stuff. So I look back and think, oh, okay, that person said, I had a really nice comment there. And I also put in there comments from my live videos as well. So that's the first thing that I do. And then the second thing is just really keeping a diary of my live videos, and to actually write down positive things. So I did a live show. Okay, my internet went down halfway through, but actually you don't focus on that first. You've got to focus on the negative, on the positives first. So my guest was fabulous. I was able to ask some great questions. I started off with confidence. The tech worked really well for the first 10 minutes. And you focus on those things first. And then, yes, you do write the things that went wrong, but you learn from those experiences. Focus on the positive things first. If you can, watch back some of your live videos. This is really hard. I struggle with this, but it's easier if you can watch it back with somebody else. So if you can have an accountability buddy here who is able to look back at some of your videos and give you some positive feedback, because what tends to happen is we beat ourselves up in a really negative way. If we were to hire ourselves as a life coach or a business coach, we'd be sacked in no time, because we'd just be so harsh on our clients if we were like, So I think we need to um, be a lot more objective, a lot more positive, work with other people who can help you in that process, but keep a diary and work on that over time. And have fun with it. Don't take yourself too seriously. This is something that I've found, that if I just like have a little bit of fun and joke around and embrace bits about my quirky sense of humor out there, then it's going to be a lot easier. And then, of course, the final thing to do is just to get your mind off it and to focus on some vocal techniques and physical techniques that you can do on your body and on your voice. That's going to help you with those, help you with your voice, help you communicate better, and just get that energy out there.
Yes, and I think for people who are, becoming live video producers, this is an area that is fascinating. And I would encourage you to explore it and just become curious about, vocal and physical preparation techniques and so on. I love the idea of the diary. Thank you so much for that, Ian. And I think you're right, because we've got a pretty poor memory for all the good stuff. We tend to be able to remember something that was horrible 3 years ago, but 3 days ago we did an amazing session, but because it's not been committed in a diary form, we'll forget and move on to the next one. I
Yeah.
like the idea as well of being part of a group. I mean, do you find yourself that you're part of a collective of other live video producers and you support each other?
Yeah. So not on a kind of an official one, but there's a group of us that we do. So if something like, I don't know, a Facebook is being buggy, then we'll reach out to each other, or maybe we've got some questions on something. So we all try and support each other, and that's worked really, really well. It historically though actually had this slightly negative aspect for me until I did some like work on myself. And this is the whole area of comparison. I started to compare myself with other live video creators out there and thinking, oh, well, I'm not as good as them. And oh, my background isn't good enough. Or, oh, wow, look at them. They've got such an amazing camera. My camera's awful. And, all this kind of stuff. And you don't want to give up. And then I kind of realized, oh my goodness. And we all do this. I'm sure we all do this, but it's just negative stuff. We need to get out of that and actually celebrate others, what they're doing, and learn from them. So this is what I don't always do it. Sometimes I have blips of comparatitis or whatever you want to call it. But on the whole, I do try and look at other people, my colleagues in this space, like, wow, what they did there was awesome. So I will try and comment on them and give them, because they need encouragement. They might look ultra confident. This is the thing. You'll look at people out there who are doing an amazing job and they look ultra confident. But you know what? Most of the time, they're just as nervous. They're suffering with all the all that negative, I don't know, imposter syndrome, whatever it is. So we're all in the same boat. So just learn from others, celebrate other success. I know it's easier said than done, but that's important. So have a space, have other people that you can learn from, but that you can also support you as well, and you can support each other, because it is hard. It's a hard space to be in.
It's hard, and I think particularly with what's happened this year, but also I think with regard to the internet, using mobile phones and laptops, there's this false impression that we can become self-reliant and do everything on our own.
Yeah,
And we don't recommend it. I mean, as you know, I come from the video production and filmmaking background, and you're never on your own. I mean, there's always a team, even if it's a small team of 3 or 4 or
yeah.
much bigger, and you divvy up, some of the tasks. So I think also for me, listening to what you're saying, it feels as though part of what can really help your confidence and the mindset and so on is to discover what you're better at in terms of producing. What is the format of the structure of the show that is
Mm.
right for you, and stick with that, and don't try and emulate, others. Obviously, over the last few years, and thinking back to some of the people that out there, are there some formats? Are there some kind of hooks and angles that you picked up that you could, list for us or mention to us?
Well, the format that I really like, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for everyone, certainly not for beginners, but so to get that practice, get some live videos out there, just go out with your phone, plan what you're going to say. I was laughing because a few weeks ago I did this, and I just thought, do you know what? I want to go live. I'm going to share 3 things. I think it was 3 obstacles to going live. So I started. It was on the way back from dropping my son off at school, and normally what I do is I have a plan of what I'm going to talk about, but I was out and about, and so I didn't. And I got to my second point, and I thought, what's my third point? I forgot what my third point is. So have a plan. That's really important. But what I really like, and this is the format this is my main format for my live show. I go twice a week, and I I think live video is a great antidote to perfectionism and procrastination. Because once you schedule that live, you're committed to it. You're going to do it, and particularly if you have guests on the show. So I do a mixture of solo shows and guest shows, and so this format works really, really well for me. I go live. I obviously do a lot of planning. I create a good structure for the show. And this is really important because what I do is I then repurpose that into a podcast and into a blog post. So there's a lot of effort that goes into producing a live show. But then once I've pressed the end broadcast button, I can then take that, or I can strip the audio out. I do a bit of editing, but I can then turn that into a podcast. I'm reaching another audience out there. I'm having fun with it because for me, I'm adding a bit more personality. I'm adding a song. I sing a little silly song at the beginning of my podcast, and I have fun with it. And so that's great. And then also I turn that into a blog post as well. So from that one live show, I got social media image posts and things like that. I've got a podcast and a blog post, and I've got a live show. And I love that. Now, obviously, when you do that, and this is why I recommend this isn't for beginners, you have to structure the show in a way that makes sense. So I have a pre-show um, it's really for the live viewers. We have a bit of fun. It's a bit informal. Then we have the main start of the show, and I bring in comments, not all the time. It's just different sections so that it makes sense for the podcast. And I can edit some of those out if it doesn't make sense to have them in there. So I structure the show in a way that makes sense for the repurposing of the show. And I'm just a great believer in there's only so much time in the day. I mean, I don't want to spend all my time tied up to my computer. I want to do other things as well, and I want to just spend my time wisely. So I find creating a live show and repurposing it into these other types of content works really, really well. I know it works really well for a few other people that are in my space too.
I like the advice of bringing the comments in question at specific times. It's not something that I thought of. Well, thanks for that. Obviously, you've done I will call them solo shows. You've done one with a guest. You've also been part of a panel. Are they part also the different formats that one can work to? I mean, would you say starting on your own is better than having a guest or having a co-host?
Yeah. So this is a difficult one because doing a solo show is really hard uh, because most of us aren't used to talking to ourselves. Maybe in 2020, actually, we're probably all used to talking to ourselves, but it feels weird. And even to this day, I do prefer guest shows because it just feels a lot more natural. It's a conversation. But I do think if you can do a few small solo broadcasts, that's going to be really good for you. I think it's going to be good for you practicing. It's great good for your brand because you're building your brand. People are signing up to see you and to learn a bit more about you. When you're bringing a guest on, it's actually all about them, or it should be. And this is the whole other conversation we could have about interview technique and listening technique. I'm still not there. I was editing my podcast this morning actually. I had my good friend Louise Brogan on, and I just looked because I have my track and my guest track, and I could see that my track was I was talking far too much, and so that's a reminder for me. Next time, I need to listen more and allow them to speak because it's about them. It's about your guest. So I think
But again,
from
if I may intervene, don't be so hard on yourself. You're just a passionate guy.
well, yeah, that is. But so when I'm being, yeah, I'm probably sounding negative, but actually, this is probably just the way my personality. It's just a reminder. So actually,
Mm.
it's a really good episode. I'm not knocking it, but it's just a reminder that I need to, we're all improving. We're all improving ourselves. So, so yeah, so the pros and cons. I think it's a lot easier to start with a guest in terms of it's a conversation, but the flip side of that is it's more complicated from a tech point of view. So you'll need to you can technically do it from your phone on Facebook, but it's not reliable. So I would recommend using a tool like Restream or whatever on your computer and bring them in remotely that way. So if you can, then mix it up. I'm a big believer in the first 10 episodes. Plan it ahead. Plan your first 10 episodes. 5 of them are solo episodes and 5 of them are guest episodes. I think that's a good way to go.
No, smashing. Listen, time is absolutely flying. We're going to have to say goodbye soon, which is, I knew it was going to happen. We're going to have such a great time with you, Ian, that I'm going to almost lose track of time. So I've got one last question for you. Then we'll end on a fun quiz. Well, fun for me anyway. You let me know once you've taken part. The one thing I wanted to explore with you is, I mean, years later, as a live video producer, are you concerned, or do you have anything to avoid what I'm going to call the live producer's block, almost like the writer's block? So, are you sometimes thinking, I hope I don't run out of ideas, or I hope I don't get myself too tired in producing this? Have you got things in place to help with that?
Absolutely, yeah. It sometimes is that negative thought pops into my head occasionally, but because I've got a plan in place, it quickly dispels. And so I'm actually quite excited by this because when I first started off, I thought how on earth am I going to have enough, think of things to talk about on my live show? Because I'm very specific. My live show it is about becoming more confident on live video. But well, surely there's a finite number of things you can talk about. But what my so I talked right at the beginning of our conversation about the idea of having a document, a plan for your live show, and so this is where this is absolutely vital. So you know who your audience is and you know why you're doing it. But I recommend coming up with 3 themes for your live show, 3 themes, complementary themes, and that's going to help you come up with content for your show. So my three themes, we've talked about this on the show, are the confidence and fear side of things, getting in front of the camera. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the tech and gear. Number 3 is the content marketing and that kind of thing. So I then have a Google Sheet. You can tell I like Google Docs, but it doesn't matter. So I have a list, and I come up with ideas for each of those 3 themes. So for me, for the mindset side of things, well, I can interview life coaches and mindset coaches. I can get people who are good at communicating. Alexander technique. I can talk about to people who are I don't know, the list goes on. And then from the tech and gear point of view, I can talk to people who are specialists in microphones and video gear, and people from live video tool companies. And then the third one, well, marketing. My goodness, there's a plethora of different people I can talk to in that sphere. So I think you'll find if you had come up with 3 themes, you'll be able to come up with content really quickly and easily. And ask your audience, what are the top questions? This is the most important thing, actually. What are the top questions your audience are asking, and how can you best help them? So hopefully your themes are going to be related to those questions. And then answer those questions on your live shows.
And you decide whether it's going to be solo with a guest as part of the panel discussion and so on. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Sometimes all of us, as content producers, marketers, we get so busy with the production side, we forget to ask the audience and look up a bit from our keyboards or microphones and just get them to participate. Wow,
Definitely.
this has been absolutely amazing. Something tells me that the Content Marketing Studio and AVL Live audiences are going to want you back. But for now, let's close with a fun quiz. So, a few questions, and you need to answer, obviously, with what comes to mind immediately. If you could have a Zoom call with a famous person, whether from the world of business, entertainment, or even science, who would that be?
Oh, my goodness. I really like. I'm always been interested in science, so it would maybe somebody like Brian Cox.
Oh,
Because
nice.
I love anything to do with astronomy. And interestingly, he actually went to my old school. He's older than me, but yeah, we've got something in common there. So I'd love to ask him some questions about the universe.
No, that'd be great. I hope you call that if that happens. We'll send some messages out there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So, if you could have your own private online concert, let's say on Facebook Live, who would be the band or the artist that would play for you and your family?
Oh my goodness, these are hard questions. I don't know. I've got a very eclectic taste. I mean, I love classical opera and all that kind of stuff. I quite like Bjork and electronica. I know that sounds weird,
Right.
but there's a yeah, that was right. Yeah, what on earth? But there's a Finnish band, a folk band called Vartina, Varttina, and I just love it. It's so fun and quirky. Yeah, so probably be them, I think.
Excellent. Well, we should look into that. So, of course, because you have this online concert, you need food to go with it. So, if you could order food for you and the family to treat yourselves, what would you order?
Well, yeah, there's only one type of cuisine, and that's Indian food. I'm absolutely obsessed.
Really?
I wonder whether there is some Indian heritage somewhere because I could eat Indian food all the time. Yeah, love it. Indian food.
If you could have your own radio show, what would you talk about and who would be your co-host?
Um, I love deep conversations. I've really enjoyed this conversation we've had. So I anything where we get deep. So it could be on the meaning of life. It could be just anything that we have where we can have a deep conversation on psychology, even things like that. Um, I don't know who my co-host would be. I mean, just somebody. I mean, well, somebody like you, because I mean, you're a deep thinker, so that would be fun. Is
Okay.
that the right answer?
It is. Yeah, I'll go for it. Absolutely. So, obviously, what we are going through is not much fun, but it will be behind us in the future. So, when we can travel again freely or more freely than we can now, where would you like to go with your family?
Well, we were planning on going to Canada in the summer this year. So my parents-in-law were going to treat us to a Canadian holiday. So I think that's got to be it. I mean, that's we were so looking forward to it. The kids had chosen actually been part of where they'd chosen where we were going to go. We'd staying at Airbnb in Canada by one of the Great Lakes. And so that definitely has to be. I mean, there's so many places in the world I'd love to go to. My goodness. I mean, we could have a whole other conversation about that. But you want one answer, so Canada.
No, no, that's fine. I think it's a fine choice. Well, once again, Ian, thank you so much for joining ARVR Live, helping me launch, a brand new video series for all of us to reflect on how we can engage our audience better and faster. I have no doubt people have more questions for you. Would like to, so thank you for your time today. Where can they go online to find more about you and your services?
Well, you've mentioned my website. That's probably the easiest way, iag.me. And it's got links to all my socials. I've carelessly scattered myself across the interwebs and the socials. So uh, Facebook is quite good. Instagram. So yeah, just wherever you feel comfortable, you can connect with me on that platform. Apart from TikTok, that's the only one. I draw the line somewhere.
We have to. And sometimes I'm thinking maybe we should just leave our customers and others free of the marketers. Give them TikTok. Why not?
Yeah, definitely.
So, to you, our viewers and listeners, a big thank you for your support. I hope you're enjoying this brand new video series. Once again, thank you to you, Ian. Until the next one, once you go out there and continue to explore new and more immersive ways to engage your audience. Bye bye for now.